This episode contains material that might be triggering for some. If you need to stop the podcast at any time to take care of yourself, please do so.
If you need support, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988. Dialectical behavior therapy was created in the 1980s by Marsha Linehan in Seattle, Washington.
Today, DBT is taught all over the world.
We're two therapists who believe everyone can benefit from DBT skills.
I'm Kate.
I'm Michelle.
And this is DBT and Me.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. It's time for Q&A.
From a different place. You're in a different place.
Oh, yes.
It's weird.
And in a different place. This may be the first time, I think, that I'm recording not in my walk-in closet at home.
Right.
For those of you who have listened for a long time, this gets mentioned periodically, either by Kate or by me, that I tend to record in my walk-in closet. And today I'm not recording in my walk-in closet. I'm actually recording at my parents' house in my childhood bedroom. And the reason for this is child care.
I was just child care. That's the reason.
Yeah, my husband's job schedule changed, but Kate and I didn't really want to change the time that we typically podcast because it works well for both of our schedules. So I have now brought my son to my parents' house, and he is being watched downstairs by my mom. Yeah, as we speak. Bless them. It's very helpful. And this also means that you guys might hear more background noise than usual. I have no idea what the sound quality is going to be like recording in this room compared to my closet and what you might be able to hear. So who knows if you'll hear my son crying. Yeah. Who knows? But that's what's going on today. So yes, thank you, Kate, for queuing me up to give that disclaimer before we dive in, because this is going to be the reality for
a while.
The near future. Yeah, for a while, that I will no longer be recording in my walk-in closet. So hopefully it all goes smoothly today.
Yeah. We'll figure it out, and we'll figure out what we need to smooth out after that if we have to.
Exactly. Perfect way to look at it. Okay, with that out of the way, Kate, I'm going to turn it over to you to read the first thing that we have for today with the Q&A.
Yeah. All right. So this one reads, "Hello, I need to prepare myself for how I may feel in the upcoming days and weeks. I have just set free my lover of 5 years and also my favorite person. I know I deserve more than they can give me. I have been very logical and calm about it. They were understanding and nice. I told them I love them, but I love me more now. I want to move forward. I have decided that if I can achieve my goals and get what I want in other areas of my life, then I should be able to have the relationships I want and deserve. But I have said no a few times before and not stuck to it. I have become lonely, sad, and I have weakened. What tools can I use to stay focused this time, please? To stay on track? I know it's for the best, but I feel alone. I'm trying to remain factual. I keep telling myself it's just a feeling and it will pass. Any other suggestions to get through this would be appreciated. Thank you."
What a common, normal thing to be struggling with when it's like you end that romantic relationship because you know deep down that it is what's best for you, but you still have so much love for that person. And there's still this really strong part of you that wishes that you were still in the relationship with them. Oh, it's so real. I'll start off with the DBT skill that most came to mind for me, and then I'll share a little bit personally about this. But I mean, the great DBT skill for this is opposite action. There is a whole handout about opposite actions for love. Right?
Love.
When you're making, yeah, which is fantastic that they have one for that, right? It's not just opposite actions for those uncomfortable, more difficult emotions like fear, anger, sadness. Sometimes we have to act opposite for a feeling like love that one would typically label as quote unquote a positive emotion. when it's not the emotion that we want to be making decisions from, like that emotional place. So opposite action is going to be your best friend. And that is going to look like noticing when you have urges and desires to reach out to this person and to go back to them, and making an intentional choice to do something else. Over and over and over and over again. It's not easy to do. It takes a lot of commitment to fully do opposite action. Mm-hmm. That's going to be probably the tool that is going to most keep you focused, as the listener put it in this post. I believe it was a post. I don't think it was an email. 99% positive it was a Facebook post. The other thing that I think it felt important for me to share is that I've been here. With my ex, I went back twice when he broke up with me. He broke up with me. I still loved him. And I went back 2 times. And really the biggest reason why I went back for me, and what I wonder if this might be going on for this listener too, when they talk about like, in the past, they've said no, but haven't stuck to it, is that a lot of times what we will tell ourselves and what other people in our lives will tell us is everything bad about the person we were with. All of the reasons, trying to remind us, you ended it for this reason, you ended it for that reason. These are all the things about them that make them not a good fit for you. People will focus on just that side of the coin. My friend and I, after one time when he broke up with me and she was going through a breakup too, we read this book. I think it was called... oh gosh, can't remember the title. I can't remember the title. I'm realizing that now. I should have looked it up. Oops, but I didn't. So, oh well. I want to say it's called A Breakup Because It's Broken, but I feel like that's a different book that I'm referencing. Anyways, this book, what I'm getting at is that this book had some activities that they recommend you go through to help you process through the relationship ending. And one of the activities was to basically make a list of all of this person's qualities for why they were not good for you, right? Make a playlist of like all these like really empowering, like, fuck yeah, I'm single now songs that like make you feel good and all of this. And I get it. Like, I understand what the book was trying to do and I see value in that. However, what I would recommend now is that don't just look at that side of the coin. You know the reasons for why you're choosing to end this relationship, but dialectically, there's this other side too, that is you were with this person for 5 years. Like you said, they were, you know, we talked about this in other podcast episodes, the concept of a favor person. Like this person has been front and center in your life for 5 years, and there was a reason why you fell in love with them, and there was a reason why you stayed in the relationship with them for as long as you did, and they have a lot of positive qualities, and you have a lot of good memories with them. And what we worry about sometimes is that if we focus on the good qualities, then we're just going to get pulled back in. But I think it's sometimes actually the opposite, where we want to be able to take this like big picture view of saying, yes, there are these ways in which we were not a good fit for each other. And there's also these things that were really wonderful and lovely about them too. And we want to be able to hold space for all of it. Because if we're just trying to shove down and ignore and look away from all the things that we love about them, eventually that stuff it's like try to shove a bunch of belongings in a closet, right? And just like shut the door. And then when you open the door, it just all comes flooding out. It's like that emotionally. And that's not the best headspace to be in. No. So I think it will also be really important to try to acknowledge all of it. Not just their quote unquote bad qualities, if we really want to boil it down, but also their quote unquote good qualities too. Look at all of it. Why did you stay? Why did you go? And recognize that there are absolutely going to be many times where you think about them and you miss them and you love them and you may want to go back. And that's when you go to opposite action, like I said originally. Those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
What about you, Kate?
So the first of all, yes, not everybody has been here, I suppose, but lots of people have been here. One of my exes, I think our final count when we finally split up was 5. We'd each broken up with each other twice prior to that. Right. Yeah. So yeah, definitely a lot of empathy. The first skill that occurred to me was actually accepts, and the T in particular of accepts, right? Thoughts. Not that, well, how do I put this? I think looking at the 3 skills that I wrote down, which was accepts, ride the wave, and check the facts, like a lot of those are meant to be shifting, right? How you're feeling, distraction from the thoughts about the other person, right? Checking the facts about, is actually going back a good idea? What's going on with this? What am I assuming? Whatever, right? All these things are meant to shift stuff. And once I started talking, I'm like, but please make sure you're also leaving some space for the feelings, right? For honoring them, for being tender with them. So I will sort of retroactively, I don't know, add in self-soothing to the list of skills. Because, yeah, it's not like the minute you think about this person or the moment you're lonely or the moment you're sad, right? That you're just like, whoop, all right, time to put that shit away. Right? And feel some other way, right?
Yeah.
That loneliness and that sadness makes sense, right? They're perfectly reasonable emotional responses to what's going on. So it's not about, we don't want you necessarily just trying to like, whoop, cut those off before I've processed them. But this is more about interceding in that space between the emotion and the action. Right? And so I think that's where that sort of moment, that juncture is where I'm imagining doing things like check the facts or riding the wave around that urge of action or, distracting yourself with something from accepts is if you feel, you have to be pretty mindfully aware of your own body and your own emotions for this. But if you can, be pretty tuned into yourself when you find you're on that precipice of tipping over from feelings into actions, right? That sort of, edge. if you're teetering, I think these skills can help you back away, right? And hang out in the healthy land of feeling the feelings, but not going back to the person to try and solve them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Okay. The next one says, splitting is my biggest problem. When I split, I go from a rational mind to a very destructive, crazy, and even psychotic mind. Splitting is a defense mechanism. However, it has been so destructive for me. I've lost so many romantic relationships, friends, and even my twin sister has not talked with me for 2 years. When I'm splitting, I absolutely believe my thoughts. When an episode ends, I realize how hurtful and destructive I have been. It is truly the tragedy of my life. So how do you handle splitting? What do you do about it?
Whew. That's a tough one. I feel like I could somewhere between I don't have enough to say and like I could talk about it for too long, so we'll see how I go here. First of all, just broadly speaking, and if you wanted to, we do have a whole episode, 1 or 2 episodes on living more dialectically. 2?
Yes, 2 episodes about dialectics.
Yeah, all right, I thought so. 2 episodes on dialectics, which might be really helpful because in its purest form, right, dialectics is the antidote, the opposite, right, the antithesis of splitting, right, whereas splitting is, nope, this is all good or this is all bad. Dialectics is, hang on a second, right? Mm-hmm. A little bit more both and rather than either or in there. So there's some lots of ideas in those 2 episodes on ways to just practice thinking more dialectically as you move through your world. And I would say that that's probably a halfway decent starting place, but that's sort of a change in your being and less of an in the moment necessarily skill. I mean, ideally you'll be thinking dialectically in those moments, but I think that also it's sort of muscle, right, to flex, right, is to practice dialectical thinking. And so you're going to want to be practicing it more than just trying to put it into practice when you're splitting, which is, arguably when it's going to be the most difficult, right? Get yourself used to the habit of it. Do what you can to also help reduce the frequency of your splitting. I think different people are triggered into that space by different things, but I do think about stuff like please or other skills that are meant to make you less vulnerable, right, to emotional overwhelm, and maybe getting into those spots where you find that splitting comes up for you. This actually also might be helped by, if at all possible, like look back at prior episodes of splitting for yourself and try and look at, when has this happened? Like, are there any patterns that I can discern about what might have been going on in my life around that time? What might have been going on just internally for me at that time? If there was a cycle to the time of the month, if there was, right, there's any kind of pattern. Oh, every time after I had a big fight here or a big stressor in this part of my life, I would end up splitting over here, right? Whatever it is, right? I don't know what it is. It's going to be unique to different people. But if you examine your past in that way, you may be able to see patterns of your splitting that will help you get out in front of it before it happens again, right? Because now you can be on the lookout for these bigger things in your life that tend to lead to that place for you, as opposed to just, catching it in the moment. Oh shit, I'm starting to, go into some splitting. Gosh, let's see. And then the last skill I think that I had out here is just checking the facts, right? I would, well, like most things DBT related, I do tend to recommend trying to practice them when you're not distressed, because then they're going to be a whole lot more accessible to your brain when it is distressed, if you've been practicing it when not distressed. And that is definitely what I would recommend with the check the facts, is practicing it a lot when you're not splitting. So it's kind of reflexive and easier for you to participate in and do when you are splitting. And yeah, I'm hoping that, I think that covers it. What about you, Michelle?
I was in the same headspace really about looking at prevention more so than anything. And I think that's what you were really getting at, Kate, of, trying to do these things when you are at baseline, when you're not splitting, so that hopefully you will have worked. I really like how you put it, right? That muscle.
Yeah.
Enough. You will have gotten enough practice so that when you need to draw on that stuff, you might be able to do so ever so slightly more than before. With, like you're talking about practicing checking the facts on a regular basis, or making sure you're using please on a regular basis and all that stuff. So I was thinking very similarly. I think it's going to be really important to look at how to try to, the best way I can think of put it is like stay level. But what I mean by that is, like, if you think about, I can't visually show you guys this because we're podcasting and you can't see me. But, right, if we think about literal waves, that can be a spectrum. Sometimes you have tsunami waves, right? They are huge waves. And then other times you have like little ripples in water, right? Little waves. And what we want it to be is that when something stressful, overwhelming, big, unexpected, whatever it is happens in your life, that your emotions don't become like tsunamis, that you're able to stay kind of level in the sense of like, you're going to experience something, but hopefully just like a very small, manageable wave where you can quickly, hopefully, return to baseline, which is the word I used a moment ago. That's what we're hoping for. And the way to do that is because you do have to practice DBT when you're not in crisis. I think that's a really good general rule of thumb to go by, is trying to cultivate a daily practice of DBT in some way, shape, or form. We say this a lot. Do not try to do all the skills at once.
No.
For the love of God. Do not pick 1, 2, 3, I would max out at that. Try to get really good at a couple skills, the skills that you feel you need the most. Try to practice those, hopefully, every day. And then when life throws a curveball your way, you're not going to be experiencing tsunami-like waves. You're going to experience smaller waves as you respond to whatever is happening. That's the hope. So Kate brought up some really great ideas already. Please would be a great one. Check the facts would be a great one. The one that I thought of was wise mind. Mm-hmm. The idea of cultivating a wise mind, getting to know it, knowing how to access it. And one way to do this is if you make an intention for yourself. You set an intention that at the beginning and the end of your day, you're going to check in with your wise mind. This does not have to be anything fancy, and this doesn't have to take very long. 2 to 3 minutes. Just like when you wake up first thing in the morning, check in. Where am I at emotionally? Because, right, we have that expression of waking up on the wrong side of the bed. This is very common. Just kind of wake up and like, I don't know, we're in a bad mood from something that happened the day before. I had that earlier this week. I woke up and first thing in the morning, I was like, God, I'm still thinking about that thing from last night, right? And I felt instantly in a bad mood. And I had to take some time to really sit with myself to reflect on it in order to get my day started on the foot that I wanted it to start on. So take a couple minutes at the beginning and end of your day to check in. What am I feeling? What do I most need? What's kind of ahead of me for the day if you're doing it at the beginning, or what's sort of behind me now? Where can I you could check in about a variety of things. Don't check in about all these things because that's probably too much. But like, what am I feeling gratitude for? What am I feeling proud of myself for? Like, just setting some kind of an intention at the beginning of your day and then reflecting on it a little bit at the end so that you're noticing, where am I making wise mind choices around what my needs are and how I can have those needs met in a healthy way. So getting in touch with your wise mind is hopefully going to be a thing that when you're practicing getting into a wise mind place on a consistent basis, you're going to hopefully be less likely to split. That's the goal. That's the hope. However, I understand that even when we're practicing preventative measures like we're talking about up until this point, splitting is still probably going to happen from time to time. It's just likely. You're still probably going to split, even if the frequency of it gets a whole lot less, which would be great. So I think it is really important to talk with people in your life about what happens when you split. As Kate was encouraging, to look for patterns. Once you've been able to notice some patterns in your life, start to tell the people you are close to, the people you see on a regular basis, this is what happens when I split. This is what I notice tends to precede it. And then this is what happens when I'm actually doing it. This may be the types of things that I say. This may be the types of things that I do. So I want to give you a heads up that if this happens, this is what I'm doing in my life to try to prevent that from happening. But if it happens, this is what you may see. And then what normally happens afterwards is I come down from it and I realize, oh shit, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Right? And then, I hope we can talk about it and come back to a place where you're willing to give me a second chance after this may happen. So along those lines, I think it's going to be really important when you do split to have a process where you're making amends with people about it. I think making amends is going to be important to go back, really take responsibility for what happened, and to talk with them about what they might need from you to repair the relationship so that they can feel comfortable continuing on in this relationship with you after what may have happened. And trying to also recognize within yourself, okay, if I look back at what happened when I split this time, again, what was preceding it? What did I do? Take it all in as information so that you can hopefully try to recognize, if I had done this thing differently, then I might not have wound up splitting. And to be able to tell the person, these are the steps that I'm taking to try to prevent that from happening again. And just really owning it, really owning your stuff and being really vulnerable with people around this after you have split on them, so that the two of you can hopefully move forward and they'll be willing to give you a second chance. We can't guarantee that they will, but I hope so, because it made me really sad to hear that this listener has lost so many people because of this. And so I'm hoping that if you can make amends really genuinely, that may help moving forward too. Okay, next one, Kate.
All right, this one's a bit of a longer one.
Yeah, this one is our longest one today.
It says, "Hey everyone. Lately, I've been struggling a lot with destructive behaviors. A few months after I started therapy, I was able to reduce them drastically, but now, just looking at the frequency, I am almost back to where I started. Finding a reason to stop has been the hardest. I feel like when I was able to reduce it, I only did it for external reasons. I wanted to please my therapist, be a more functional member of my family, and not be judged for scars this upcoming summer. Those motivations still exist, but it doesn't feel like they're enough anymore. I want to stop for myself. But not only do I have a hard time wanting to do something good for myself, I also feel like I deserve to be miserable. I just really hate myself right now. My therapist wants me to write down some thoughts that might be helpful to say to myself when I want to do the problem behavior. Thoughts that should help me recognize that I am worth trying to find a different solution. I can't think of one. Things like, I am worth the effort it takes to change, don't feel genuine. They're just empty phrases to me and make me want to think about all the reasons that I'm not. I know that my destructive behaviors are often caused by thoughts about self-hatred, and then when I do them, I also confirm every negative thing I think about me. It is a cycle, and I have a hard time getting out of it. I know the distress tolerance skills that work for me, but I guess you all know how hard and exhausting it can be to fight this when you don't even really know why. So my question to you is, how do I start? How do I find reasons to do good things for myself without just doing them because people expect me to, while I hate myself? Thank you already so much."
There's a lot here. But I'm so glad that this listener made this post, because I think it's something that is really relatable, that a lot of people can understand, and a lot of people who have been there. Where I started after I read this, like what first came to me with thinking about how to respond is when the listener's talking about that their therapist has recommended to think of some thoughts that might be helpful to say, but they haven't been able to think of one. So take it or leave it, like with anything. If I say this thought and right, the person who wrote this is listening to this Q&A right now and goes, "Oh, Michelle, no, don't like it, not for me." That's completely okay, but I'll throw it out there anyways. The idea that I had as a potential thought to get you started, as what you can say to yourself, is, I did it before, I can do it again. And the reason why I'm hoping that thinking that will be helpful is because we're looking at facts with the piece of, I did it before. Even if that's the only half you can think of, even if adding on that I can do it again feels like too hopeful or too pie in the sky, think to yourself, I did this before. Like, I did this thing, right? I stopped for X amount of time. Or I did this where, I don't know, normally this is the way I typically respond, and I did it before, but I didn't respond that way. Like, really praise yourself and remind yourself of the past things that you have done well. And I know that that's part of the struggle right now, is that you're like, I was in a good place and now I'm not, right? So reflecting back on the good place, like, I get that it has that potential to kind of bring you down. But my hope is that the experience of reflecting back on it will be a way to, basically give yourself some praise and some validation that, like, you have done some really hard things. Like, you did those things when it was probably really hard to do, and you did it. And I just hold the belief, generally speaking, not just about this listener situation, but generally speaking, as I wouldn't say like a universal truth, but something that tends to be true, is that when we have been able to do something once before, that shows that we have the potential to do it again. Doesn't mean we're necessarily going to do it again or like do it perfectly or anything like that, but it means that the potential is there because you were able to do it once before. So let's just acknowledge that there is the potential that you could do it again because factually you got there at some point in time. So it opens the door, right? So that's what I was thinking of, if that feels in any way like it could fit for you. I did it before, I can do it again, as a potential helpful thought to draw on. But also, I don't know, I felt really proud of this listener when they were saying at the end, the thing of, I know the distress tolerance skills that work for me. That alone is a big accomplishment because that means you have tried out the distress tolerance skills. You haven't just learned about them. You've actually done them, which sometimes I think that can be a leap with DBT. Sometimes we can have a lot of, knowledge about the skills, but we're not actually practicing them. We're not actually doing them. You did them and you figured out what worked for you. So that is huge. And I think that that is probably the place to come back to, is because you know the skills that work for you. Even though you said it's hard and exhausting to do them, which it is hard and exhausting to do skills. That is the place to start, is, okay, when things were going well for me, however long ago that was, what was I doing then that was working? And let's not try to necessarily reinvent the wheel, is what I would say. Not at this point. See if you can go back to those familiar things that were working for you at one point in time and see if you can get back into a rhythm of doing them now. And maybe you try them now and you're like, all right, I'm doing these things and it doesn't work, right? These skills aren't working for me as well now as they once did. But we want to start there with trying them out another time. And really break them down as small as possible. This is something that Kate and I both come back to a lot. Make them super small. If what was working for you before was that you were, say, I don't know, going for a walk every day, don't set that goal to go for a walk every day. Nope. We got to work back up to that, right? If you haven't gone for a walk in months, don't be like, all right, I'm going to start taking daily walks again. Too big. Make it smaller. Make it as small as you need to. If you were going for 30-minute walks, like maybe try to go for like a 10-minute walk. Just see what happens. And of course, if that feels good, then keep going. But just set really small goals for yourself that like get at the thing that was once working. But isn't you trying to go back from 0 to 100? If someone's in the rhythm, like with our bodies, if someone's in the rhythm of physically going to the gym, say 3 times a week, and then they don't go to the gym for like 6 months, you're going to feel different when you go back to the gym. You're going to feel more sore. It's the same thing for us cognitively, right? In our brains, emotionally. It's the same thing. We got to work back up to it. So start where you know, but also start small with that and see what you can work back up to over time without putting too much pressure on yourself. Okay. I'm very ready to hear your stuff, Kate. I'm sure you're gonna have no pressure, but I'm sure you're gonna have lots of good stuff to share about this one.
Well, I mean, probably no surprise to anybody who's been listening to the podcast for a bit, but I have a lot of empathy for what this listener is going through. I have absolutely I went for a good run a time or two with my self-harm where I wasn't doing it for other people. That's really easy to stop doing, is stuff for other people. Because then I just get all belligerent, like, well, who are they to tell me what I can and can't do with my body? Right? Like, I'm not hurting them. Right? It's none of their business, right? Like, yeah, it doesn't, at least for me, eventually I would reach a level of distress that meant I could tip into, well, fuck them. Right? This isn't about them. This is about me. And then, because I thought I was a sack of shit, worth absolutely nothing, there were no more barriers, right? Once I got rid of other people as a barrier, there were no more barriers between me and my self-harm. And so, yeah, I absolutely understand the struggle. Like, how do I start liking me, right? Or like, how do I start doing things for myself when I genuinely do not believe I am worth the effort, right? Like that's a hurdle and a half. And I get that. So first, empathy. Secondly, some self-compassion, if you can, if it's in there. Well, I guarantee you there are infinitely recursive opportunities to be self-compassionate. Just ask my amazing mindful self-compassion teacher who annoyed the shit out of us every week by asking us if we'd done the homework, and then someone would say no, and then she'd say, were you able to have compassion with yourself for the fact that you didn't do the homework? And the person would be like, no. And then she'd ask, all right, well, did you have compassion for yourself about the fact that you couldn't have compassion with yourself about the fact that you didn't do the homework? And on and on and on. We're like, oh my God, stop. But let me tell you, it drilled very deeply into my brain that you never run out of opportunities to be self-compassionate, no matter how far down the road to dictum you have gone. Right.
Like when we're fucking up, that's when we need it.
Yeah.
Like when you don't do the homework.
Exactly.
Right? Which one would argue is fucking up.
Yep.
That's when you need the self-compassion. And right now this listener is basically writing in saying, I'm fucking up.
Exactly.
Blah, blah,
yep.
blah. This is when you need it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, why would you don't need self-compassion when everything is genuinely just going exactly how it's quote unquote supposed to?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you can muster self-compassion, no matter how far down being a dick to yourself you've gone, there's still room, I promise, to find the self-compassion. And you so rightly deserve it. Again, I know from self-experience, you talk about it being exhausting and hard work for having distress tolerance skills. I also know that it's exhausting and painful to feel worthless all the time. Self-hatred is exhausting. So, you deserve a lot of self-compassion, listener. I hope you're able to find some of it. So, but on to slightly more practical advice, I suppose. Let some of what you're saying to yourself feel like lies. Right? I think this is probably the, with good reason, most common pushback I get to any positive thinking I instruct clients to do about themselves. Anything nice I have people try and think about or to themselves. I would say I get 80+% of the people come back and say, well, I tried it, but it felt like a pile of bullshit, so I stopped. This was before I started anticipating that 80% of people are going to come back and say this. And I try and head it off before we get there. But, right? Of course it's going to feel like a lie. It is right now, according to you. You don't believe it. So it's gonna feel like you're lying to yourself because from your perspective, you are. There's nothing you can't just make that go away, right? But the somewhere between cool and can be grossly abused, but thing about our brains is that if we think a thought, those neurons start to grow together, right? Our neurons that fire together, wire together. It just starts being easier to think. It just does. It's a biological process. Your feelings on the matter don't actually matter, right? The pure repetition of the thought will start to embed it in your physical brain to such a point where thinking it will start to feel easier, and your self will begin to confuse easier with true, with right, with good, with honest, with whatever, right? It will just start to feel more natural to think something like, I don't know, what was the sentence that the person used? I am worth the effort it takes to change, right? If you keep saying that to yourself, despite it feeling like absolutely lying to yourself, eventually it won't feel like lying anymore. Which is pretty fucking cool, I think. I get really excited when I talk about that part of neuroscience because it feels like magic! that you can change the physical structure of your brain just by thinking really hard and often, but you can. So, don't think that it feeling like lies is actually a barrier to it becoming an effective thing. because it doesn't have to be. The repetition is the part that matters, not the it feeling good. So, on the other hand, having some positive things that you can say that feel honest is going to be more rewarding, right? It feels better to do things that feel better most of the time. So, Michelle, I like I did it before, I can do it again. My idea was something along the lines of, I'm trying to learn that I'm worth more than this.
I really like yours.
Thanks. Right, because I was trying to bottle it sort of after the sentence that the listener was saying didn't feel genuine, right? I am worth the effort it takes to change. And so I'm trying to learn that I'm worth more than this seemed to, like, ideally, I hope, be a more honest feeling, accurate feeling, but still positive, right? Because that's where you are. Everything in here, like, I wish I'd sort of started here, right? How do I even want to put that? It's so fucking cool that you're even asking for help here from where you are, listener.
Yeah.
It's really easy to just tip over into the pit of self-hatred and never look up again. That's easy. I mean, it's not comfortable, but it's easy. So the fact that you're like, well, I know I hate myself, but something in me suspects I at least possibly might be wrong. I know that's in there because otherwise you wouldn't be writing asking how to get there, right? You may not even feel it. It may be this itty bitty teeny tiny little grain of sand somewhere in your being. But somewhere in your being, there's a tiny bit that goes, I think maybe we're not entirely worthless. That might be a stretch. And that's where we're building on, right? So, I think that it's sort of like, like making a pearl. Right? Little grain of sand, but it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger over time, layer by layer by layer, right? It doesn't have to be I'm trying to learn that I'm worth more than this, but I would say that while it's okay to let a lot of the things you're saying to yourself feel like lies, because they're gonna, do try and find one that feels honest and accurate to where you are. And the cool thing is that intention matters. You're saying I'm trying to learn. That does imply that you have not learned it yet. That's true. But look at the beautiful intention that's there. That's something worth celebrating. Right? It's not like the only time you get to celebrate working on your self-worth is once you've found it. Like that. That'd be shitty. That's not much of a reward structure. Yep, your only reward is at the very, very, very end. Once nothing is difficult anymore. Like, wait, what? Not nothing. Not like good self-esteem makes literally the entirety of the world easy, but I think it makes it easier. No. The intention already is worth a celebration. It's worth acknowledgement. It's worth a loving pat on your back. That you're trying. You're trying to find your worth. That's really fucking hard. Gross, icky, painful work. So, I hope you have some self-admiration. Speaking of, my last two suggestions. One, pick a thing you're proud of every day. I normally have that what's your favorite moment each day thing, which I still love, and you could certainly do that as well. But I specifically when folks are really trying to hone in on self-worth, self-esteem, right, that actually wanting to help yourself, then I think I like to have folks focus in a little bit more on pride, because people have a hard time with pride. And pride is pretty antithetical to terrible self-worth. So, pick something you're proud of each day. And please set the bar stupidly fucking low. Because if you're like, well, I didn't change the world today, well, then let me just tell you, most of us don't have fuck all to be proud of most days of our lives. That's just true. Most of us aren't doing big things most days. So, you wanna know what I'm proud of myself about? I got up and did a bunch of chores this morning. Chores I've been avoiding. There you go. That would be my thing today. Fuck yeah. Got up, fed the cats, did chores. Ta-da! Right? Not to call myself out too hard, but a few days ago, my thing would have been that I actually finally showered. That's not been happening quite as often as it ought to be, right? Like, the bar does not have to be high. Just what are you proud of yourself for today? What was the thing that was hard? that you did anyway. Congratulations. There's your answer to what are you proud of today. And to help yourself be proud of more things, I love Build Mastery. Go do the thing you're good at. I don't know what it is, but I know you're good at it. Whatever it is. Because we're all good at something. Some of us are good at things that people applaud around the world, and some of us are good at things that matter not at all. We're still good at them. Which I like mine, Michelle. Mine is always my grilled cheese sandwiches. It's not like it's the only thing that I'm good at, but it is plausibly my most meaningless skill.
That's a perfect example of Build Mastery.
I'm really good at it. Right, so do something to build mastery when you can, and think about something you're proud of, no matter what you did or didn't do in a day. There, I feel like I talked for a long time on that one. Did I say good things, Michelle?
You said amazing things. Really, really great things.
Excellent.
Okay.
This
is our last one. Yep. Okay. It says, we're having to put my fiance's dog down tomorrow.
Aww.
I've lived with this dog for about a year and fell head over heels in love with him. Focusing on him and his medical issues happened to be a good way of avoiding my own life and finding something that brought me joy. And as a result, he's sort of become my whole world, and now I'm losing him. I'm in such distress and feeling so completely alone and empty. I'm having an even harder time accepting it. I realize that I'm probably feeling stronger emotions around losing our dog than other people who don't struggle with overwhelming emotion. But I just wanted to know if anyone had any coping mechanisms to recommend at this time. I'm feeling so ungrounded, all over the place, anxious, empty, lonely, etc.
It's sad.
It's very sad.
Speaking of, I don't know who could or couldn't judge the relative strength of any given human being's emotions, but I do just want to validate that a fuck ton of people are devastated by the loss of their pets. So, the first thing I'd want to say as a listener is just please do not feel alone. You are not alone. This is much more normal than it appears that you think. People really, I don't know. This isn't exactly true. But sometimes I think that for a lot of people, pets are like all of the plus sides of humans without the downsides of humans, right? Like this is...
I agree with that.
Companionship, love, fun, play, entertainment, touch, right? All of these amazing things without the, ability to make words, which is probably what ruins most human relationships. Right? So whatever the being was, if some being feels like the center of your universe, then losing that being is going to be devastating. So, first off, just validation. Let's see. Then, I don't know, sometimes, Michelle, I don't like how past me takes notes. Sometimes I like how past you takes notes better.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm like, it's great, I'll just put keywords in. Who needs to type out whole sentences? And then future me is like, why did we make that choice? Anyway. The skills that I have listed here. First one, no one is surprised. Self-soothing. But honestly, grief to me is absolutely one of the emotions that self-soothing is the best for. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, what does grief need other than tenderness, right? Like this, acceptance and tenderness and meeting yourself where you are, right? Everything that self-soothing is about. So that'd honestly be the first thing I would focus on. Like, screw necessarily stuff that's I don't know, if a skill feels difficult to do, I would say the day you're losing your pet or even a few days afterwards may not be the time to do it, right? Do the stuff that's kind, that's relatively easy, right? That's easy access, right? So self-soothing is the first one I think about. That accepts. I like accepts more than improve. I assume that if it were Michelle might be saying improve instead of accepts, because we have different favorites there, but either one, honestly, could be just fine, right? Both of them are about getting your mind off of, the thing that's causing you as much distress as you're in. The unchangeable thing, right? I mean, broadly speaking, I suppose we could both just point to the entire distress module, or distress tolerance module, because the death of someone you love. This is what, that's exactly the kind of thing that it's for. So it could just be, pick your distress tolerance skill of choice. And they're all aimed at helping in some fashion with this. But self-soothing, accepts, and just broadly speaking, mindfulness and dialectics. Actually, a lot of the same, I think, sort of dialectics as you were talking about a little bit, Michelle, with the breakup one really early in the episode. But, right, like, it doesn't have to be all good or all bad, right, when you're thinking about this pet, right? I miss him so much, and he also brought so much to my life over this last few years. I'm devastated without him, but I wouldn't want to take away the fact that I'd met him. You want to see the broader picture of the whole experience, which is going to include the blessings, right? And not just the loss and sadness, which of course is there and valid and real and sensible. And maybe not where you want to spend all of your time. And so if you're finding that that's the only place you're living, you might be able to balance it out with some combination of wise mind, mindfulness, dialectics, that side of things. So yeah. Sorry.
Gotta sneak it in.
So
yeah, that's a transitional phrase. Oh, yeah. I mean, I started with this where you did, Kate, where you were really validating that pet loss is super hard and super real. And I actually did not think about this until just now when you were, talking. But when we think about who are the people that we see day in and day out in our lives, a lot of times that's partners, children, if you have any children, and pets. Like, those are the steadfast constants in our life. And you may have other people, right? Other family members or other friends.
Yeah, family members, pets, or
basis.
your roommates.
Yeah,
whatever.
But like, who is there to greet you every morning and every evening? A pet, right? Like, you have so much contact with pets, more than you do with a lot of other humans in your life who you may love and be very close to. But there's something about pets, and you were honing in on that really nicely about just like what makes pets so wonderful, and that's what makes the loss so hard. It's really difficult. So what came up for me is the importance of doing something to honor the loss. I didn't really think about this in terms of specific DBT skills.
That's okay. I threw a bunch at it, so I think we're good.
Yeah, you're great at that, Kate. You are wonderful at being able to really name how DBT specifically can help.
You didn't put tattoo in your list of things, though. Anyway.
I didn't.
Sorry.
That would totally count. Yeah, I was just thinking of ways to honor the loss, right? When you lose a pet, I mean, this can really apply to any kind of loss, but I think take these things and apply them to losing a pet, which a lot of times people don't do. People don't really do much to process that grief, not nearly as much as we do to process the loss of a human being. But I think we need to treat pet loss more like losing a human being in our lives that we were close to. So try any or all of these things. I think it would be really wonderful to write a letter. I'm a huge fan of writing letters you don't send. I say that on a pretty regular basis. But yeah, write a letter. Tell him how much he's meant to you over this last year. Tell him. You didn't get a chance to tell him when he was alive. And depending on what your beliefs are when we die, you may have beliefs in some kind of an afterlife or you may not. But in particular, if you do believe in an afterlife, then maybe there is a belief that you might hold deep down that if you write this down or if you choose to say that out loud, he's going to get the message. He's going to receive it in some way. So if that's a belief you hold, that can make writing a letter even more impactful. Put pictures up. Put pictures up of him. Again, in our houses, a lot of the time we have pictures of human beings on the walls. Of course we do, right? Again, partners, children, other family members. Make sure you have pictures up of him. Again, when you're ready. You may not be ready for that right now. That's okay. No timeline around this. But I think that's important, is to recognize that he was a key piece of your life and your fiance's life. So if you are the type of people who have like pictures up in your home and that's something that is really meaningful and important to you, make sure there's at least a picture or two of him so that his presence is there and you can look at those pictures. And as Kate was saying, not just feel the emotions of loss, which are certainly there, but also feel the joyful emotions that he brought to you over this last year. So I recommend putting up pictures and talking with people about memories you have of him. Whether that is talking about it with your fiance and having that shared experience, or talking with other people in your life who didn't know him. If you have one or two trusted others, that's a term we use sometimes, talk about him with your trusted others when you're ready. Again, I can't say that enough. when you are ready. And you're talking about him here in making this post, which I mean was a really vulnerable post to make at the time, right? Putting him down tomorrow, and you recognize that you needed to reach out for support and that you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so you did that by making a post in the Facebook group. Talk as much or as little as you need to talk. Maybe I just say that because that's how I process so many things in my life, is by
or
talking
because
and
we're
verbalizing.
therapists.
Or because we're therapists, right? We sit and listen to people talk all day long for a living. But talk about it. And you will likely find that a lot of people can empathize with exactly what you're feeling. And I hope you'll be able to find people who won't necessarily make it about them, if that makes sense, right? Like when you're sharing memories about your dog, they're not going to jump in and be like, oh yeah, my dog too, right? I hope you'll just be able to find people who will really hold space for you. And that's even something you can ask for if you feel comfortable doing so. It's just saying, I'd really love to be able to like talk to you about some memories I have of him and just have you listen and hold space for me. Are you willing and able to do that? And hopefully you have a couple people in your life who will be willing and able to do that. So I think that's really important. Kate threw in, and I totally agree with this too, I have had clients do this. Get tattoos. Yep, that's a really wonderful way to honor all kinds of loss. And to remember and to really signify how important he was in your life. If tattoos are your thing and you'd want to get a tattoo for him, do it. I think that's amazing. You can also now, I don't know the logistics around this, but like you can have ashes, right? Human or animal, doesn't matter. Yep, but you can have ashes made into like, do you know what I'm talking about, Kate? Like these really like beautiful spheres.
Oh, yeah. Yep, like glass or something.
Blown glass, I think. Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought that there's some places that put it in the tattooing.
Oh, I don't know about that, but that'd be cool.
But yeah, no, there's absolutely things like that you can do, or like plant trees, or like. Yeah, plant trees, all kinds of things that we can do for loss that are really appropriate and applicable to the loss of a pet. So do those things, and do like, please refrain from telling yourself that he was just an animal. Like, don't minimize in that way. I know it's so tempting to do that. I did it when I lost my cat too. Like, it's so tempting to just be like, it was just an animal. No, pets are so much more than just animals. Let's be honest, humans are animals. We're mammals. Like, as Kate was acknowledging, like, we have language. They don't. But in some ways, I think the loss of a pet can be much harder than any other kind of loss. So it is really valid, anything that you're going to feel around this. Okay, that's what I got. All right, I think that's what we've got then.
Yes.
That's the end of Q&A 45, which is both a lot and somehow doesn't seem like as much. I don't know. That's weird. We're getting there. Numbers are funny. If you would like to help us continue to climb in our numbers of Q&A, you can certainly reach out to us by email, dbtmepodcast@gmail.com, or many of these are pulled from the Facebook group, right? So that's DBT and Me Podcast Is it like facebook.groups. Whatever, / or whatever? Anyway, no, who cares? I don't know, but you can find it anyway.
Facebook.com/groups/ I think
DBT Me Podcast. Yeah. Anyway, you can find that one.
That's what it is. Yeah, just search for DBT and Me, and we come right up on Facebook.
Yep.
Pretty easy to find us there.
And yeah, we'll get your question in a future Q&A. So.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, everybody.
To learn more about us and the DBT skills we're teaching each week, join our Facebook group. Simply log in to your Facebook profile and